Welcome to the Rocket and Raygun Awards. We have got another fantastic category for you, and I have to be honest, this is probably the toughest category in all of the stuff that we're looking at for 2019 and the decade. We're talking about the best action-adventure game from the last decade, and we've got some big games to talk about here. But before we get into our nominees and hand out the winner, let's hear from the community.
My choice for action-adventure game of the decade is a little different. It's Shadow of Mordor. I like this game so much, I bought it twice. Shadow of Mordor took the combat aspects of the Arkham games, it took the stealth and building traversal of the Assassin's Creed games, and it put it into a Tolkien story on steroids. And then with the Nemesis system, which was truly a unique gaming creation that made the game addicting.
I'd have to give it to Portal 2. Portal 2 kind of stands on its own for having the whole package. It not only has a phenomenal single player, but also its co-op mode standalone is fantastic. And who doesn't like Peabody and Atlas?
Batman Arkham City, following up the amazing Arkham Asylum, was a tough job, but they more than did that with this game, which I consider the best in the Arkham franchise. The combat's refined with more tools, the Riddler trophies are more varied with lots of ways to test your understanding of mechanics. The story is great, plenty of stuff to do once you finish the story, and having a second playable character in Catwoman also really helps spice things up a little too.
Batman Arkham City. It's expanded on pretty much everything from Arkham Asylum to a vaster escape of Arkham City to be the Batman with more possibilities. And beating up all the thugs is pretty fun too.
I love Batman Arkham City. It took everything from the first game and made it 10 times better. But the nod has to go to The Last of Us. That game just hit me right in the feels with its brutal, visceral combat and just bleak post-apocalyptic settings, but that glimmer of hope throughout the whole campaign just had me stuck to these characters till the bitter end. I love it.
It has to go to a game that impacted so many people with story. It had action, it had adventure, but more than anything else, it had this incredible story. And of course, I'm talking about The Last of Us. It made a cultural impact on gamers everywhere, but also it's one of those games that people that don't often game could pick up and play and get into. I love that. I love when we can bring more people aboard. Just bring them on in. Get more gamers in here.
The Last of Us is a game that was immensely and is immensely influential, not only for its character development and story, but also for the voice acting that was really well done, and the stealth elements and the gunplay and the action.
That narrative of family and sacrifice and parenthood and this relationship with Joel and Ellie and how interesting it is and how many you know, I don't want to throw any spoilers out there, but it's just by the end you are so invested in these two and the outcome of this game. Few games can really draw you in like that.
Our nominee for Best Action Adventure Game of the decade goes to God of War 2018.
God of War was just a phenomenal story. They really touched on Norse mythology, but they did it in a way where the fighting style is just phenomenal. Like the difficulty curve on the game was perfect. The react, attack, Dark Souls-like style of combat was repackaged in a much more approachable and easy to get into way.
The best action-adventure game of the decade, I feel easily is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. For a game that is in a franchise as beloved and as long-running as The Legend of Zelda, for them to go back to the very beginning, to the original NES The Legend of Zelda game, and just give you this open world that from the very beginning you can go anywhere you want. Being able to climb any mountain and not only get to the top of it, but want to go to every other mountaintop there is, and seeing all the different collectibles that you can get. And whether it's something small or something big, when you hear that shrine noise, you want to go find out what the mystery around the corner is going to be. And that is why I love video games. And for them to capture the magic that I felt when I was a little kid, being a 30-year-old man, is very, very impressive to me.
Action adventure game, hands down, Breath of the Wild. First place I went to after you get through the main first parts, the first city I go to is Zora's Domain, and what they did with that, I was jaw dropped, eyes wide open. I'm like, oh my god, look at this place, this is amazing. I just ran around for like 10 minutes just to take it all in.
I'm going with Breath of the Wild because when it comes to exploring an open world, Hyrule is vast and there's so much to explore. Whether you just want to find every single shrine and finish all the puzzles, or just fool around and invade a Moblin's camp.
Okay, let's get into our nominees for the best action-adventure game from the last decade. Batman Arkham City, 2011. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, 2017. Red Dead Redemption, the first one, 2010. The Last of Us, 2013. And God of War from 2018. See what I'm talking about? Those are some of the biggest games that have ever been crafted for the video game industry. I think I'm going to break my own heart just talking about the ones that didn't win. And I think, you know, people that have been playing the home game for a while, been watching us for a little while on TV, probably know what my choice is going to be here. Let's talk about Batman Arkham City. Not the winner, but I gave it a 12 out of 10 when I reviewed it originally. Rocksteady Games completely broke our brains with the fact that they had moved from just the asylum, Arkham's Asylum, to an entire city to explore, filled with lots of buildings to infiltrate and lots of characters to interact with, lots of incredible mechanics and detective work and fantastic storytelling with the best voice cast on earth, it felt like. Phenomenal game. Absolutely phenomenal. If you've never played Batman Arkham City, shame on you. You don't even have to like the character to have an incredible time. It is an absolutely wonderful game. We're talking about Red Dead Redemption, which came out in 2010. Now, not only was this another foray into open world storytelling, and Rockstar was quickly establishing itself as the leader in this genre, but this was a game filled with characters that had real resonance and were much more heartfelt and less cynical and less kind of, you know, sarcastic than a lot of the Grand Theft Auto stuff that we had seen before. It wasn't tongue-in-cheek. They weren't buffoons. There was real subtlety and nuance to the characterizations and the voice work, and you cared about these characters. And because the game was so massive and there was so much territory to explore and so many adventures to get into, you felt like you went on a real journey when you played the original Red Dead Redemption. And I remember feeling completely downhearted and melancholic after I'd beaten the game because I didn't want to leave these people. I wanted to know what was going on in their world. So you can imagine how ecstatic I was when I found out that more Red Dead Redemption was going to be coming. And of course, Red Dead Redemption 2 is also an incredible game too. Red Dead Redemption, however, not our winner. The Last of Us came out in 2013. I think we could probably say this is Naughty Dog's best work, and they've given us lots of great games, so that's a hard one just to pick there, right? But The Last of Us was a new era in mature storytelling. There was something about the ferocity of the game experience and how tactile it felt and how much it placed us into this outlandish, crazy scenario, but it felt so believable. Incredible details, heartfelt performances, and characters that we're going to care about forever. Unbelievable game. God of War in 2018, I think, would not exist if not for the success of The Last of Us. Cory Barlog and his incredible team at Sony Santa Monica completely re-envisioned what Kratos meant, being this god of war, this hateful, vengeful, insane, crazy, action-oriented creation, was converted into a father and had a real sense of connection to a kid that became a playable component of the game that we were given. And all of it felt like such a crazy right-angled turn from what we had seen in previous God of War games that the demos were amazing, but I'm sure a lot of us were feeling like there's no way this is all going to hold together as well as it looks like it's going to. And it did. It exceeded those expectations. Incredible work. But talking about reinvention, we're going to give our best action-adventure game of the decade award to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which personifies and exemplifies reinvention. With Breath of the Wild, they did something we just were not expecting. We were not expecting an open world, kind of persistent environment filled with emergent gameplay and physics-based puzzles, crafty little story bits, and lots of subtle homages and allusions to previous Zelda lore. But it didn't come together in exactly the same way that any other Zelda game had. It was completely interpretive. It was really a different game for every player, you know? And so much of Hyrule was open to us and explorable to us, and the ability to climb anything, and all of the boss battles, and these giant creatures that you're enlisting to help you along your journey. All of it was just so breathtaking and sensational. Such a powerful way to introduce the hardware of this transformable video game hardware where you could plug it into a television and then also use it as a portable device, but get lost in an epic world and an epic adventure, conceivably one of the biggest ever crafted for video games. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, an incredible achievement, and it's our best action-adventure game of the decade. Okay, you know, we've got a lot of other categories to hit in the Rocket and Rayguns this year, all of the 2019 stuff, but of course we've got a lot of other categories in the best of the decade, so make sure you check all of those out, and thank you so much for watching.